Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. What is the future of the Jammu and Kashmir government after the collapse of the National Conference alliance with Congress? Can it survive till the next elections, or is it destined to crumble and fall? That's the key issue I shall put to Chief Minister Omar Abdullah in part 2. But first, as the Congress party faces revolts in 5 states, is it heading towards a fresh crisis? Senior ministers in both Maharashtra and Assam have resigned, MLAs in West Bengal have defected, and trouble is brewing in Haryana as well as Jammu and Kashmir. So is the dissent and frustration in the Congress party about to become something significantly worse? That's the first debate tonight. And now joining me to discuss the crisis in Congress is the award-winning political editor of The Hindu, Smita Gupta, the well-known senior journalist Kumar Ketkar, one of the foremost journalists from the Northeast, Subir Bhomik, and Congress spokesperson and a member of the Haryana government, Randeep Singh Surjewala. Smita Gupta, the headline on the front page of your paper, The Hindu, today said there's a revolt in Congress across 5 states. In fact, you called yesterday a Black Monday. How serious is the crisis facing the grand old party?
I think it's extremely serious, and what happened yesterday is just, I think, one more phase in a series of unfolding events. Because as you know, in the general elections they were reduced to 44, and in the months since there has been, the mood in the party is really grim. And people had expected that perhaps there would be some major changes, but so far Mrs. Gandhi has made no changes at all.
As you describe it, it sounds like an escalating, aggravating problem. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes, it is.
Let's come, Subir Bhomik, to what's happening in the states, and let's start with Assam, where perhaps many people believe the Congress crisis is the worst. Not only has Health Minister Himanta Biswa Sharma resigned, but he took some 28 MLAs yesterday to call upon the governor and demand that the chief minister be removed. Now here, I put it to you, it's not just a revolt. There's a very good possibility the Congress party could split into 2. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think there is a very strong possibility of a split of the Congress party, and this has come about for 3 reasons. One, of course, is that after carrying the Congress through to 3 straight electoral victories, Tarun Gogoi was on a high. But after the recent election results, people who have been ambitious, who thought that they can replace him at some point of time, now after the results and the drubbing that the Congress got and the better result of the BJP, has provided the dissidents led by Himanta Biswa Sharma to make their presence felt, to demand a change in leadership. Somehow the High Command is not obliging, perhaps for fear of ripple effect elsewhere in India. And therefore the hardliners now, who thought it's now or never, the dissidents, they are trying to make their presence felt. They are trying to push the High Command into a situation in which it won't have a choice. They're threatening them with a split. Now the options before the dissidents led by Himanta Biswa Sharma is as follows. Number 1, High Command should accept them, replace Tarun Gogoi, or there should be some kind of a power sharing in which the dissidents also get enough presence in the present sort of Tarun Gogoi cabinet. The second option is, of course, that nothing happens. The High Command says we go with Gogoi, and you guys, you have to sort of fall in line. When, at that point, Biswa Sharma and his people, sort of 28 to 30 MLAs, they break off from the party, they set up something like an Assam Congress, something like what Mamata Banerjee did at some point of time in West Bengal, and then they they have some kind of an alliance or some kind of an understanding with the BJP. The BJP, if that happens,
If that happens, finish your sentence.
The BJP is really going to gain, because with Badruddin Ajmal's AUDF, the BJP has already benefited, because the Muslim vote, the Congress's Muslim vote, has already been split in Assam. Now if something like an Assam Congress happens and the dissidents created, then of course the Congress's vote bank in other communities of the state will also be split, and that's directly going to that's going to work in BJP's favor.
The
third option is that for the time being, people hold on, they maintain a status quo, and it's basically a wait and watch till such time somebody feels we can go for the kill.
All right, let me stop you there. You've given me a very comprehensive answer that sketches out all the possibilities, and the one thing that's common to all three possibilities is that it's bad news for Congress no matter which way you look at it. What about the situation, Kumar Ketkar, in Maharashtra? Is Narayan Rane's resignation just an embarrassment for the party, or given that he's believed to have a fairly strong hold on the Konkan region, despite the fact his son lost the election from there just 2 months ago, is this more than just an embarrassment? Could it be a more significant setback for Congress in Maharashtra?
Actually, it may turn out to be embarrassment to Narayan Rane himself, and moreover, the cascading effect of the so-called discontent in the Congress actually should not be described as revolt, because this has happened. Revolt means there must be a counterpoint of leadership. Like in 1969, when the Congress was split, there was a Congress organization, Congress president on one side and Mrs. Gandhi on the other. Again in 1977, when the party was split, there were Jagjeevan Ram, Bahuguna and Nandini Satpathy on one side and Indira Gandhi on the other. So every time Congress split, even actually in 1978, when Congress was split, there was Devraj Urs there and Indira Gandhi there. So I think there is no acceptable leader across the country to mobilize the discontent in the Congress, and therefore it will remain widespread or not so widespread discontent, but unless there is a counterpoint of leadership, it cannot be described as revolt. Moreover, when you lose power, there are always people who desert the ship, and this has happened in 1977, this has happened again in 1989, when Rajiv Gandhi came from 414 seats to 197 seats. So every time there is a defeat, Congress has seen such desertion from the party. Desertion from the party, discontent in the party and revolt in the party are quite three different things.
All right, I will point out one thing and then I'll go to Randeep Surjewala, because it's important we get his version. He is the Congress spokesman. What I'll point out first is simply this. You're right in pointing out, Kumar Ketkar, there isn't a alternate leader around which the concept of a revolt can fructify, and therefore without that leader this is not a revolt. But you do have a series of divisions and splits threatening the unity of this party, and that can sometimes be as damaging, although it could be containable if properly handled. And that's the point I want to put to you, Mr. Surjewala. It's not just Maharashtra and Assam. You have 3 MLAs who've deserted you in Bengal. Your alliance with the National Conference has collapsed, and now in addition a former MP Lal Singh has decided to split with you, very possibly join the BJP, and you have trouble brewing in your own state, where your General Secretary Birendra Singh and even Kumari Selja seem to be speaking out against your Chief Minister. So whether you call it a revolt or whether you call it a series of damaging divisions and splits, the point is it's a spreading disease.
Mr. Thapar, let me begin by pointing out what Mr. Ketkar was saying. In 1977, when we lost, a similar exodus of some leaders happened. In 1989, in 1996, in 1999, in 2000, we've seen similar coming in and going out of people who were looking for immediate power or posts. Secondly, personal ambition, a thrust for power, sometimes takes many political people out of a balanced political standing or debate. And that is what is happening to some of the individuals that you mentioned. But when you look at things in the larger perspective of overall leadership, the only leadership that has successively succeeded in bringing the Congress party back to power is the Nehru-Gandhi leadership. And even when Nehru-Gandhi leadership was not there, like in 1991, we had to face a very serious defeat in 1996.
Can I interrupt you at that point?
Post the death
Can I
of
interrupt
Mr.
you at that point? You know, the leadership that brought you back to power after the debacle of 77 was Indira Gandhi, a determined, steely woman. The leadership you have today is Rahul Gandhi, who may be her grandson, but he doesn't have the steel, he doesn't have the determination, he isn't even willing to be the leader of your party on the floor of the House to front the challenge. So when you look to the Gandhis for the leadership to bring you back, you must begin by accepting you have a very different lot of Gandhis at the head today. They are not Indira Gandhi.
Mr. Thapar, let me give you three very quick examples. Mrs. Gandhi you already spoke about, so I'm not going to take your time. Secondly, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi brought the party back to power. Yes, there was tragedy of Indiraji's assassination, but in 1991 when we came to power, and when Rajiv ji died in the election campaigning, it was his victory. Again, when we came back to power in 2004, when everybody had written us off like now, it was Mrs. Gandhi's determination. In 2009, everybody, all news channels, all newspapers, everybody including opposition said it was the youthful vigor of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. It was the seniority and experience of Mr. Manmohan Singh that brought us to power.
I'll let you give me that answer in full, because it's only fair that you should represent your side. But I want to pick up now on the bigger point made by both Kumar Ketkar and also by Randeep Surjewala, that what you're seeing is not a revolt. He's even possibly disagreeing with my lesser description that this is a series of splits and divisions. They're saying that this is one of the natural consequences of a party suffering a major defeat as it has. And secondly, it's a reflection of individual ambitions, which perhaps is natural in politics. Would you agree to this lesser description of the problem afflicting Congress, or do you stand by your description that this is a serious crisis and that the Congress could well be in big accelerating trouble?
No, I stick by my point that it is in accelerating trouble. You see, what Mr. Ketkar says is true, that there is no alternate leadership around which. But the fact is that when they lost in 1977, they had close to 200 seats, 180 around that. And they had Indira Gandhi, who was still a mass leader, who was capable of bringing the party back to power. Today the party is withering away. It's true there is no alternate leadership. It is true what Randeep Surjewala is saying.
And they've never fallen to 44 before.
And
Indira Gandhi's time in 77, they were 144.
No, I think close to 200, 180 or something, much more.
I think it's somewhere in the 150s, but never mind.
Anyway,
at least 100 more than they are today. So are you saying that something that makes the problem that they face worse is the character of Rahul versus the character of Indira Gandhi?
Partly that, and partly there's another point which I think is very significant. Till this 2014 election, the politics of India was Congress versus non-Congress. Now it is BJP versus the rest. So which means that the Congress has to reinvent itself, it has to do business with other opposition parties, and only then can perhaps
There's a very interesting corollary in your answer. Congress has now become part of the rest. It's one of many, not unique on its own. Mr. Mohammed, let me put this to you. I want to explore with you the extent to which the ineffective response from Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi to whether you call them splits or revolts has actually exacerbated the problem. Immediately after the Assam Lok Sabha results, Tarun Gogoi let it be known that he accepted responsibility, he would resign. Rahul Gandhi seemed to put his foot down and has stood by him and virtually insisted Tarun Gogoi not resign. By taking that stand, has Rahul Gandhi actually overlooked the growing dissonance and dissidence in Assam and made it worse? Instead of lancing a problem, has he allowed it to fester?
No, actually there is a particular logic in this, that somebody who has scored 3 centuries, he scores a duck overnight. Do you throw him out of the test team? The man who has led the Congress to 3 successive victories in assembly election, this time the Congress has done poorly, and this is a national phenomenon. Can you really blame Tarun Gogoi for the kind of performance of the Congress? Now he offered to resign because he was so confident of doing well, and he did not realize the impact of the Modi wave and all those factors.
Can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you? You see, I take your point that you stand by a test cricketer who scored 3 centuries, you don't sack him just because he suddenly got a duck. But here, what Rahul Gandhi seems to have overlooked when he supported Tarun Gogoi is that Mr. Sharma has 28 MLAs supporting him, which is a sizable number. In fact, Mr. Sharma claims that his tally could go up to 50. Now that makes it seem very different. It's no longer an individual chief minister who's had a run of bad luck. That individual chief minister seems to be losing the support of his own assembly party.
Now, Karan, I don't quite agree. I mean, Mr. Sharma thinks, or he says, or he claims that it could go up to 50. It could go up to 50. At the moment, he can only put on board or put in front 28 MLAs who are definitely supporting him.
Isn't that big
but
enough?
That certainly does not make him
But isn't
the
that
leader
big
of the
enough?
majority in the Congress legislature.
No,
party
but
in Assam.
if you remove 28 from
Assam,
Congress's tally
there
of 78, Congress loses its majority in the assembly. So isn't 28 big enough to undermine the government? And should Rahul Gandhi have overlooked
Yes,
such a sizable dissonance?
It's a sizable dissidence, and Himanta Biswa Sharma, with his band of 28, is quite capable of putting the Congress in the tight corner. That being a fact, it's also a fact that he is yet to be the leader of the majority in the Congress legislature party, and therefore his claim to replace Tarun Gogoi or take over the leadership from him is not something that's cast iron, that's cast in iron.
I take your point.
That. Still, the majority of people are supporting Tarun Gogoi. And secondly, what is very important is there is a difference in the situation in Assam, and what happened in Bengal when Mamata Banerjee broke away from the Congress is that here these people have been part of a ruling coalition, Mr. Sharma and all the other ministers. There is a strong allegation that Tarun Gogoi failed to deliver in this election, but the blame of this entire government, whatever the failings, these people equally share that because they have been part of this government, they have been ministers, they have worked under Tarun Gogoi, and therefore if you believe in collective responsibility, Mr. Sharma and his people can't say, oh well, it's just Tarun Gogoi,
take your point.
And because of him that the party performed so badly.
I take your point, and it's a very interesting and important point, but let me ask the same sort of question to Kumar Ketkar. Kumar Ketkar, the Times of India says that when it comes to the question of replacing Prithviraj Chavan because he brought Congress to a terrible situation at the end of the Lok Sabha elections, in fact, the party leadership had virtually drawn up a short list of his possible successors. At that point, Rahul Gandhi intervened and decided he was going to put his foot down and they're going to stay with Prithviraj Chavan. Now here, it's not just that they'd gone so far as to identify a short list of successors, even NCP wanted the man replaced, and they had Mr. Rane pushing to replace him. So in the Maharashtra context, did Rahul once again take a wrong decision?
I don't think wrong or right is the question. The difference between Assam and Maharashtra is heading for election. And moreover, Congress and NCP alliance is heading for a big disaster, almost like in Lok Sabha election. Congress and NCP are not going to do well, irrespective of whatever congressmen say. They are facing a huge defeat in Maharashtra that is written on the wall. So Congress in Maharashtra and Congress in Assam are not comparable. Point number 2, just correction for Smita Gupta. Congress got 153 seats in 1977 after emergency. It was not totally anti-emergency vote because entire South, all the 4 states in the
but
South,
let's not get lost in the emergency.
120
I take your point, it's an important correction.
Seats.
But come back to the situation in Maharashtra today.
No, and that's
Has Rahul mishandled it? Answer with that for me. Has Rahul mishandled it?
I am actually coming to that. Mrs. Gandhi could handle the situation because she had shown the leadership quality outside the party as well as inside the party. Now what has happened is, in this present case, is Rahul Gandhi so far has not directly shown the quality of mobilization of people. Mrs. Gandhi's strength was mobilizing people. Rahul Gandhi so far, except in electoral campaigns, he has not shown outside the political system ability to mobilize people across the country, which Mrs. Gandhi showed. And Rahul Gandhi by now, unless he goes out to the people across the country, irrespective of whether they are congressmen, non-congressmen, artists, writers, unless he goes out, it is not possible for Congress to recover. Then the discontent will spread. Revolt may not take place, but discontent will spread. And cascading discontent, as Smita said, is absolutely correct, unless it is actually stopped by Rahul Gandhi personally intervening. One should not expect Sonia Gandhi to all the time intervene.
Can I interrupt and put this to you? Your answer leads me to this question. Is there a critical sense in which Rahul Gandhi's behavior, his talents or lack of talents, his experience or lack of experience is exacerbating the problem for Congress? That he's simply not the right person at this moment to tackle the problem Congress faces. Is that a right conclusion, Kumar Ketkar, from what you're suggesting? A quick answer before I go to Mr. Surjewala.
Gandhi was described as dumb doll. Rajiv Gandhi was considered completely unfit. I remember India Today cover story, does the cap fit? does the cap fit? And according to India Today cover story, the cap did not fit on Rajiv. So Indira Gandhi was dumped on Rajiv Gandhi, cap did not fit, and therefore the question of Indira Gandhi's leadership comparing with Rahul does not actually wash. But the point is, unless Rahul Gandhi goes out and among the masses, not just a few people, advisors and intellectuals and the party cabal, he will have to go out and he can go. I don't think he is not an expert or expert. I won't comment on that because I have not seen him in action except in electoral campaigns.
All right, let me bring in Randeep Surjewala. Randeep Surjewala, although this is not how Kumar Ketkar put it, nonetheless he's saying unless Rahul Gandhi can go out and actually mobilize people, campaign with the people, which is not a talent he's shown and not something he's done to great effect, you haven't got a hope. So I'm going to repeat my question. The problem that you face today of differences, divisions, splits or revolts, call them by whatever word you want, is exacerbated by the inability of Rahul Gandhi or Vice President to rise to the occasion.
Mr. Thapar, same things were said about Mrs. Gandhi in 77, about Mr. Rajiv Gandhi in
77. They were said about Indira Gandhi in 66.
77 when we lost.
She was a gungi guria in 66. In 77 she'd already gone through being Empress of India.
Gandhi till she came
Remember
back.
In 71 December, Vajpayee called her Empress of India when she won Bangladesh. So in 77 she was well past that problem.
Absolutely, but let me also remind you, in 1977 every political commentator worth his salt wrote off Mrs. Gandhi, and she wrote back.
And remember how quickly Belchi was staged and how quickly after Belchi she returned to the forefront, and the manner in which she challenged the Charan Singh government when they tried to arrest her, staging a dharna on the roadside. None of that is showing up in Rahul Gandhi. That's the point I'm making.
Just kindly give me a moment. In 89, everybody again wrote off Rajiv ji after we lost. And he came back with a bang with people's support.
I don't wish to be nasty, rude or crude, but it was his death that brought you seats. It was a sympathy vote for his death that brought you seats. The difference between the two stages of the elections and Congress performance in the two stages makes it clear. It was post his death that you won seats. Before his death, you didn't do so well. It was in death that he brought you back, not as a living leader.
Well, that's questionable and I don't seem to agree, but let me bring you to the present. And the present is, who bore the burden of the entire campaign in 2009, again entire campaign in 2014, when in 2009 we won 21 seats in UP, everybody said it is Rahul's magic. Yes, we have lost today and we humbly accept it. We need to reinvent ourselves. Mr. Gandhi is somebody who is a very seasoned, serious thinker. He thinks, he decides and he acts. He doesn't act and decide, he thinks and acts. So some people do not like that style of deep deliberation before acting. But that can be part of an individual style. But the truth is, that we have resurrected ourselves in the past, and we will with the wish of the people and by becoming their voice.
Absolutely. They talk about the phoenix, she rises from the ashes. No doubt Congress has great ambitions to replicate it, but I'm rather surprised by that definition of Rahul Gandhi as a serious, seasoned thinker. You have every right to describe your leader in those terms. I'm not sure whether the country would agree. Let me put this to you, Smita. It seems that by all accounts, Congress is going to lose the elections in Haryana, Kashmir and Maharashtra, and they're all going to happen in the next 4 months.
And perhaps Jharkhand. And perhaps Jharkhand.
And those could be fairly sizable defeats. Is the problem of difference, dissidence, revolt, call it what you want, going to get much worse by that point and thereafter?
Well, you see, they have set up this Antony committee right now, but most people are very cynical about the Antony report, which will be submitted only to Mrs. Gandhi. So unless the party does something, I don't think the impending defeat of the party in these 5 assembly elections is going to matter that much. But what will matter is unless the party actually does something to, something dramatic to change the situation. And I think Mr. Ketkar made an excellent point when he said that people are waiting for Rahul Gandhi to lead the party. Just today, a very senior party leader, he said, we have unfurled our swords, but our leaders that is Mrs. Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, have to tell us who we have to fight and how we have to fight. We are waiting.
So you've got warriors ready and waiting, but the leadership call is missing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to you very quickly, Kumar Ketkar. There's a very interesting situation that you've heard Smita describe, in which is that she completely agrees with your point that Rahul Gandhi needs to be a leader. He needs to go out and put on the mantle and become the general because the warriors are ready to fight. Do you believe that this party is capable of honestly coming up with something dramatic, as Mrs. Gandhi so often did in her moments when she was down and out, so that they can once again present the image to the country that they matter and that they're going forward? Can that something dramatic happen, or is it going to take a miracle?
No. It may not be as dramatic as it was in 1969, 71, 77, 80, 84. Certainly not, because India has changed a lot. There are so many local forces which have emerged, which did not exist to that extent except in 1967. But nevertheless, if Rahul Gandhi is seen to be only thinking, and after thinking seen to be acting, and if it does not also act simultaneously, not thinking first and acting later, but thinking and acting going almost simultaneously together, which was the hallmark of Mrs. Gandhi's politics, if Rahul Gandhi keeps only meditating, which he seems to be doing, then there is a threat that the Congress will further discontent and break away, but it will splinter, it will not have a revolt. Sharad Pawar tried a revolt, it failed. Jagjivan Ram tried a revolt, it failed. Even Y.B. Chauhan tried a revolt, it failed. V.P. Singh tried a revolt, it failed. So revolts have failed so far, and the Nehru Gandhi family has survived. But they have survived only by going to the masses.
I'm not sure V.P. Singh's revolt failed. V.P. Singh's revolt took him to prime ministership. So I'm not sure you can say it failed.
Only for 11 months.
No, it doesn't matter.
V.P. Singh became prime minister for 11 months.
Let me tell you, most people would be happy to be prime minister for 13 days. So 11 months is quite an achievement, particularly when you've had to fight against the Gandhis to do it.
Could not
but let's not.
V.P. Singh could not sustain the revolt. V.P. Singh could not sustain the revolt. Sharad Pawar could not sustain the revolt.
Yes, but V.P. Singh used the revolt to decimate Congress, in the sense that Congress didn't come to power for many years thereafter. Let me end with you.
Decimate is not the word.
Yes, you'll be right. Decimate may be a bit strong, but certainly to disadvantage. Let me end with you, Ranjit Singh Surjewala. Your metaphor that Rahul is a serious, seasoned thinker was beautifully turned on its head by Kumar Ketkar, who said maybe the time has come for Rahul to stop thinking and start acting instead. That, in a sense, is what people in your party privately, and sometimes not that privately, complain about. He spends too much time meditating, cogitating, a bit like Rodin's statue with his hands cusped in his chin cusped in his hands. It's time to act. A quick answer, because I'll end with you.
Well, Mr. Thapar, defeat doesn't have many fathers. Mr. Rahul Gandhi, despite 10 years of UPA government, was one of those young leaders who had the mettle and the courage to take the entire campaign onto his own shoulders. Of course, supported by the entire leadership of the party. But it was that one young man who led the entire campaign. We lost that, but that does not mean that we are either hiding or meditating. We will be out there speaking for the people, fighting for the people, like we did in the run-up to 2004,
I'm going to stop you there.
Speaking their voice and becoming their voice.
I'm going to stop you there. All I'm going to add is Rahul Gandhi may well have the metal, but the question is it pure steel or is it a bit of an alloy instead? My thanks to all four of my guests for joining me.